Welcome to Dream Farm. On today's episode, we're going to cover two topics. The first one is how the deer utilize the sorghum on this farm. I'm going to evolve my strategy with sorghum every year just a little bit more to find the best way to take advantage of this crop. I think it's really good for food plots because the deer don't eat it during the summer. So if you've got a slightly higher density than what you could sustain with corn, the sorghum's a good option. The deer will eat the corn during the summer if you've got a lot of deer, but they won't touch this. And they won't start on it until the seed head starts to form, and that's going to put it into September in most cases. So they may learn to hit it pretty hard at that time, but until they do, you've got something for, say, fall, winter that the deer can have that, again, if you tried corn, there wouldn't be anything left.
And I think we touched on this a little bit maybe earlier or last season, but last year there was so much food that it was a really cool experiment in what the deer eat when given other options. Like if they have everything they could possibly want, what do they eat and when? Because they weren't like desperate for food and starving the whole season. So you kind of got to see like their preferences and really their tendencies.
Yeah. So it's going to be fun to see how they use the sorghum and maybe talk a little bit more about the strategies that we're going to try this year when we plant it again. So there's a patch behind us. This one, being in a valley, got frosted a little bit quicker than the next three that we're going to go to, which are up on the ridge. So this one didn't quite make all of it to seed. Some of it, you'll look at the heads and say, well, they didn't really eat it. Well, then you start using your fingers and you'll realize it's kind of chaffy. The seeds just they weren't able to reach full maturity before the frost hit. And of course, that stops everything. I planted pumpkins and brassicas, the Whitetail Institute Winter Greens blend, into this sorghum. And the sorghum I planted was their sorghum. Whitetail Institute's going to come out with some sorghum here. They're letting me test some, and they've got some other locations that they're testing. It's a cream colored sorghum. I think the color of the seed tells you how much tannin is in the seed. The darker it is, suggests that there's more tannin in it, which maybe makes it a little bit more bitter. So the lighter colored sorghum, at least in theory, should be more attractive to the deer. And so that's what's in here. This is really close to the buildings too. So it'd be maybe one of the ones that got utilized last after we got out of here, after the hunting season was over, and sort of let the deer have the place to themselves. But you can see some of the pumpkins are still here, kind of all, wintered down. The brassicas, there's still a few bulbs in here, but that's one of the things that I want to talk about. And again, we'll get into it later in the episode, is what to layer the sorghum with. Sorghum is perfect for multi-crops. I call it layering. It could be beans, could be brassicas, it could be something else that's at the lower level. And because the sorghum doesn't get really tall, you can see it's waist high. You can get a lot of sunlight in as long as you don't plant the rows too close together. So you can really get like a double crop in here. Dream Farm is brought to you by Whitetail Institute, research equals results. Hunt Stand Pro Whitetail app. Hoyt Archery. Stealth Cam trail cameras. Wildlife farming, and PH Outdoors food plot drills. This is one of the three plots that are up on the ridge, and you can see how much better this one was utilized. There's a little bit of chaff left on it, but this one didn't frost as quick because up on the ridges the temperature stays a little bit warmer at night. You get down in the valleys and all the cool air drops in there, so you're going to get your first frosts down in the valley. But you look back through here, and this one got used a lot. We even saw the deer using this while we were hunting here back in December, and I think maybe even a little bit in November. The next one we go to, the deer used that a ton. Well, that was picked over almost by December. And this one here, I think still got a little bit left on it, but you can see they're hitting it pretty hard. I'd say most of the grain is gone. Probably what you see now is just going to be the chaffy stuff between the seeds. And also, just a real quick side note, if you're getting ready to buy your seed, take advantage of the discount code that they gave us to give out to our viewers. Look in the description. I can't remember the code. Do you remember the name of the code?
Was it
Winke 24 or something.
25 or whatever? I
Winke
don't
20.
remember.
There's some anyway. Look in the description, and there's a discount code where you get 20% off ordering seeds from Whitetail Institute. And that's pretty awesome. That's a nice savings when you think about how much that can save you over the course of all of your planting. So this one looks good. We'll take a look at the next two, and then we'll wrap up from there. This is the one we were talking about just a little bit ago, but the one you called Old Unreliable. They have eaten every seed off here. I mean, if there's anything left at all, it's the chaff. We saw them way back in early October coming right through the brassicas and eating the sorghum. Mm-hmm. They liked it here. Mm-hmm. This was the spot that all through December, January, and February was the hot spot on the farm. This is where the buck that I hunted all season finally anchored for the winter. This is where we found his sheds. So we had the Whitetail Institute wintergreens and then the Whitetail Institute sorghum. And that was the winning combination. So we'll do the same thing again this year. We'll probably flip-flop. We'll probably put sorghum on this side, and then we'll plant beans. We'll drill beans in here. And then the deer will eat the beans during the summer, and then we can drill the wintergreens into whatever's left in July. And should be a winning combination again. I mean, it was pretty awesome this year.
I saw it right when you said stop.
Our sorghum episode turned into a shed hunting episode.
We found more sheds today than we did when we were shed hunting.
They've hammered this spot too. Mm-hmm. So these ridge spots, I'm sure the sorghum had more chance to mature, so there was more seed on it. Mm-hmm. Gosh, there's nothing left but stems here. Yeah, that's pretty cool. So I think the consensus in my mind is that sorghum plays a key role, even in areas like this with lower deer densities. It seems like it's making sense. Mm-hmm. The deer are really eating it. Mm-hmm. And I don't think they ate it much. We were in here quite a bit in October checking trail cameras. They hadn't really started on it much. So it had to have been November, December, January, maybe February. So they saved it for the winter.
Do you think that some of that had to do with the commercial corn got picked too?
Yeah, and I think they would glean through that and eat the kernels and stuff because that's easy to eat.
Right.
And this had beans in it and wintergreens. Mm-hmm. So there was a lot of food out in the other half of this, or the other 2/3 of it. They didn't eat it early. So that's kind of nice. You got something maybe you can anchor them late season with. Mm-hmm. So yeah, the location, I think that matters. We're close to the bedding areas here. The other one is close to bedding areas. The one by the open gate, is not quite as close to bedding areas, but pretty good. I think it makes sense to have something like this in an area that gets a lot of traffic versus corn, because the corn might get hammered quicker being this close to the bedding areas.
Right.
So I think we wrap up here. I think sorghum is important, and we'll talk about it more. I'm super impressed with what it did this past year on the farm.
Yeah.
It played a key role in these more, I call, remote locations of keeping food here throughout the whole winter. All right. Well, we appreciate you joining us, and we'll see you right back here again soon for the next episode of Dream Farm. And remember to always dream
big.